I've been a witness to Amrita's bouts of violence, verbal violence, physical violence, and abusive behavior many times. She invited me to remove my underwear and to massage her vulva with my penis. My name is Jacques Alboer. I am French and Swiss. I was Amma's translator for many years, and I came to her first in 1980. Before there was even an ashram, I was there together with Neil and Gail. And since I'm a polyglot, I translated for her in 5 different languages when she was visiting Europe. And I was the European representative of her mission, and organized her tours when she was coming there. And in her absence, I was traveling some 10,000 kilometers a month between the different countries of Europe to give talks, satsangs, and to meet the devotees and interested persons. India, and I used to travel with him for half a year, and we used to visit several saints and sages on the way, among them Nisargadatta Maharaj in Bombay, and in Bombay and Pune, I visited also those. Who was the guru of Guru Mayi? This Muktananda. We went to Anandamayi of Bengal, or Ma Anandamayi, as others call her. She was definitely the best of the whole lot, apart from Maharaj. Sai Baba and all sorts of others unknown at bus stops. I remember there was a yogi who had who was erring, and he stopped at a bus stop at some point, and he's said to have remained there for 10 years. It was funny because the buses was plying its route and making a special stop at this yogi, and everybody was getting off the bus and doing their offerings and everything, getting the blessings, getting back on the bus and continuing its route. Anyway, so yeah, and at a certain point, we used to go regularly to Ramana Maharshi's ashram, Ramana Ashram, the ashram of Ramana Maharshi. And we used to stay there, and year after year, and that's when I met 2 of the first protagonists of the Amrita story, namely Nilu and Gail, who later became Gayatri. We didn't know each other, but we crossed each other, we greeted each other, we exchanged a few words, and that was that. Each of us was having his or her own life. And when my mentor at that time had also property in Kerala, in Varkala, so we used to do the rounds at every year, every visit after Ramanashram, we would go to Kerala, and I would stay in his place. And it is on one occasion during my birthday that he insisted that I visit that place, which was not an ashram then, where this girl Sudhamani, as her actual name is, was dancing and singing and jumping around during the beginning of Devi Bhava. Actually, we had the visit in Ramanashram of one of the early disciples of Amrita, who was Chandru. And he actually saw Gail, he saw Nilo, and he saw me. And he explained to us about this young woman and her dances and ecstatic devotion and blah, blah, blah. And I was not impressed. I was more into intellectual approach. I was more into Jnana Marga and was not interested in this thing. But I was in Kerala. He had insisted that I go visit this woman. Actually, at that time, I was in Kerala because of some health issues, and Kerala is well known for its Ayurvedic doctors and cures. And I accepted, and I met Amrita for the first time, I believe. Okay, so when I decided to come and stay, and it was of course agreed by Amrita, I will not call her Amma for specific reasons explained in my book. But since she has renamed herself as Amrita, Amritanandamayi, I'll call her Amrita for simplicity's sake. So when I decided to come and stay there, and she agreed, and she invited me to come, there was she was staying in her father's house. There was just a family house in the yard, and she was staying in that house, and I remember that she invited me to stay in. She moved out of her room. She put me up in her room in the house, in the father's house. The mother and the sister of Armata were cooking for us basic food.
Mhm.
And we spend our time meditating, praying, singing, cracking jokes, visiting devotees. She was not so well known at that time. She was mostly she was
Mhm.
not recognized as a guru. People used to come to her because she was having those bhavas, Krishna bhava and Devi bhava. And they considered that she was imbued by God's presence at that time. And otherwise, she was the daughter of her father. But they were friends with her. The devotee scene and the disciples setup happened later. I believe within a year, but I'm not so sure anymore. It's just
Mhm.
so long ago. Uh, People who want to have exact dates and all that should actually refer back to my book, where I have been immersed in that and put everything in detail. So it was happy days. Happy days. We were not a bunch of minstrels. We were a bunch of devotees of God, spending their life happily, praying, singing, meditating, doing physical work, menial work, and otherwise spending life among each other. There was hardly anybody there at that time. There was the family in the house. There was one Indian man who is Balu in the books, and the others just came and went. They were working outside. They were coming for the darshans, Devi and Krishna darshans, and they stayed up at night and after the darshans and talked all night with Amma under the trees, and then left to their work, mostly bank jobs. And that was the life then. At that time, we believed that she was inspired, that she was blessed, that she was transmitting her her own spiritual or mystical experience, and we were there in order to benefit from it, because most of us had already a path behind them. We were already involved spiritually and had a spiritual goal. But we were not in the mindset or the framework of doing anything special for the world. It happened later that she wanted to give a framework to what was happening at that place, and she wanted to register an organization. She wanted to have bylaws. She wanted to organize life there, and she adopted more the role of a guru towards us, which was a bit difficult in the beginning, because all that time she had been our friend, our more advanced friend, but still our friend. Well, if you want to understand the background of this, if those who know the story of Krishna and the gopis, the cow herders, the cowherd women, they looked upon God, Krishna, as their friend, as their heavenly friend. So in that sense, Amrita was our friend, our divine friend, if you want. And we were not so comfortable with that change, but we understood that it was good for others, it was good for us also, and that's how the place started to take on a more formal how do you call it, formal environment and formal way of life. And that corresponded to the time when she had visits from outside after Nilu, Gail, and myself came there. Others from outside started to come. And we were the first to, rightly or wrongly, to recognize her as a guru, as a proper guru who had a message for the world, for spiritual seekers of the world. And that's how it started. And we had a more routine. Our life was organized precisely. At such and such a time, we meditated. At such a time, we chanted, etc., etc. Then later came someone who gave us classes in Sanskrit and scriptures and all that. And later came Chandru, who for us was a joy because he was inspired. He was good. I've been a witness to Amrita's bouts of violence, verbal violence, physical violence, and abusive behavior many times. Also in the presence of Gail, and well, I mention Gail because it's one of the most striking examples, which she mentioned in her own book. I'd like to say that she was more violent and abusive the closer you were to her. And the closest person to her, on the one who was the recipient of most of her violence and abuse, was Gayatri or Gail. And I was in that room where when on Vishu, on New Year's Day, Malayalam New Year's Day, when Amrita came up without warning back to her room where Gail was mopping the floor of the bathroom, and she sat down there to cool off and immediately asked for a cup of tea. And you have to understand that making tea in India is not just dropping a bag in some hot water, but it needs to cook with the milk to sugar and all that, so that that's how it acquires its special Indian flavor. And Gail was not all ready. She had her hands full of soap with and cleaning the bathroom floor. So she ran up to the kitchen, which was a floor above, and she thought, I'm going to make tea, but I first needed to offer her some warm drink. And the only thing she had there was warm milk. She brought it to Amrita and then ran back up to make her tea. And when Amrita put the cup to her lips, she noticed it was just milk. And she went into a fit of rage and started screaming, when have I ever been drinking milk? And she threw the cup across the room and it hit a wall and then rolled down the floor. And then when Gail heard this noise and screams, she ran down the stairs and she saw Amrita in a fit, and she came to apologize, and Amrita started abusing her and tearing at her sari and pulling her hair and threatening her in so many ways, and so Gayatri ran back up to finish the tea, and when she came back with the tea, Amma was even in a stronger fit of rage and started saying that if Gayatri was not leaving, she would cut off her limbs, and it's totally ridiculous, and I would say unfitting for a spiritual personality like she wanted everybody to see her as, even unfitting for a spiritual seeker. But it happened many times. I mean, she has been scraping the skin out of Gayatri's neck, and she broke the ribs of what was her name? An Indian sannyasini who was attending her, Dr. Lakshmi. And the no, Dr. Leela, sorry, Dr. Leela. Lakshmi herself, who often helped Gayatri, who was this Dutch girl, a bit goofy but very dedicated. She was hit several times. I mean, you would even hear it. You would hear the bashing noise, and what's her name, Lakshmi falling on the floor, and yeah, this happened often. Even some of the boys, the closer men, whom we called the boys, were also getting their share. But they were never as she was never as violent with them as she was with the. She would invite us, or I'll speak from myself. At times, she would invite me to lay on her cot next to her and be quiet, which was a wonderful moment. Then at other times, she would take my head and press it against her chest, which was not bad either. And at some times, she would remove her breasts out of her petticoat and invite me to suckle them, to put my hands on them, etc. Most of the time, it was just that. And then on a few occasions, I don't quite remember how it happened, how we got there, but she invited me to remove my underwear and uh, to massage her vulva with my penis. At that time, I thought it was getting a bit wild, but I had, I had no, I was not behaving with her like a boy who wanted to get laid. That was not my scope at all. I had no scope. I was just there. And so what I was, since I was invited and I was there, and I didn't find it unpleasant, to say the least, I called up tantric principles and tried to transform the excitement and let it inundate my heart and my brain. But I was there, and it happened 2 or 3 times. I don't remember. I was there with an erect member, going up and down the cliff of her vulva. Of course, it had to be lubricated, otherwise it would hurt. And that was it. And one day, it was in Italy. She had invited me to her room after the program, and Gayatri was already fully asleep. She was absolutely exhausted, and she took a blanket and she threw it on the floor, and she invited me to lay down with her, and she invited me straight away to take up that how shall I call it, that exercise or that practice which we had done in India. and in the scissor position, lying side by side, and at one point it just went too far. Her body started lubricating profusely, and my member just slipped in just a little bit, but a glance of the penis was nested in there, and I thought, my God, this cannot go on because I don't intend to have sex. I was not, to put it bluntly, I was not interested in having a fuck. It would not have occurred to me that I would make love to my guru. And so I stayed there. I was frozen. But then the excitement was so high that I passed that point. As the men will know that there is a certain level of excitement beyond which you cannot control yourself anymore. And then I ejaculated. She was asleep herself. I don't think she was aware. And suddenly she felt not only the pulsation but the fluid, and she jumped up and rushed to the bathroom and washed. And then for the duration of I mean, she spoke to me afterwards. She seemed shocked, and she said to me, "But I would never imagine that you would have gone that far. If I've allowed yourself so near, it's because I trusted you," and blah blah blah. And for the duration of the European visit, on top of all my tasks, including driving at night, translating through the night, and we were in the Schreibenalp in the Swiss Alps, and she sent me downhill for half an hour on mountain uh, dirt roads to find doctors to have her urine tested because she was worried that she could be pregnant, which is a useful information with regard to the subject of her being of her not having had any menses ever. She was just a normal woman. And every night I was going down and hoping to get in touch with doctors. I would call them, they would scold me, and I had to invent a story, of course. I couldn't say who she was, etc. I said I was at a camping place. My girlfriend was worried, blah blah blah, and the doctors were scolding me. Why do you wake us up in the middle of night? Come back to us with your pot, with your urine pot when you during the opening hours. I never had a chance, and then finally she flew back to India, and we never heard about this anymore. But she was not pregnant with my own eyes. But having seen the way she was with me, and knowing that the other boys were also going there, maybe two or three of them, at least I know of two or three of them, I can well imagine what was going on there. Also, seeing her principle of being physically intimate in order to bind the boys to her so that they would not waste any time and energy going around. Maybe also a way to manipulate us so that we're really attached. Of course, after I left, there was a period when I was full of rancor. Actually, it took me 7 years until, I mean, I was in a complete reaction, rejecting everything, Hinduism, gurus, spirituality, blah, blah, blah. Until at one point I was working on myself, doing a work not only on the mind, but on the body as well, which we know stores trauma in specific places. And during that work, it just melted. It's that mountain of rancor which I had built up just melted, and I reconciled myself with the evidence, with the reality that that life which I had led developed the way it did, and it was over, and now a new life had taken its place. And then I again found the connection towards the spirit, the spiritual practices, and all that. And but what I thought of gurus, having known India a lot, having studied the scriptures, having studied Sanskrit and so on and so forth, is what I mentioned in the book, in the last section of the book, that there is a corruption in India among gurus and the guru principle. The guru principle, I mean, if you go back to the basic ancient texts, it's very clear. The qualities of the guru are very clear, and there is no abject obedience to the guru. In the Upanishads, the guru-disciple relationship is a relationship where the disciple can ask any question to the guru, can show his disagreement as well. There shouldn't be an abject relationship of utter surrender to the guru. There is that concept of surrender is a very confusing thing. I can't explain it now because it'll be too long, but you'll find it in my book. The principles, the basic principles are good. Just the humans are corrupt, but it's the same in all fields, in the finance, in politics. The human being is basically corruptible and gets corrupt. It is the same thing in spirituality. Also, they get corrupt. I mean, it's a thing that feeds itself. The devotees who follow guru are often people who can't manage their life, who have neuroses, who have problems, who have worries, and they flee that confrontation which they can't face, problems they cannot solve, and try to find a family where they are loved, where they are appreciated, where they are an easy family, protected from the outside world, and the outside world is bad, and the inner family, special, chosen family is good, and all that. We know all this from movements and sects and all that. So what I have retained of all this is, of course, one of the reasons why I went to Amrita in the first place, as I said in the beginning, was to give the heart aspect of my path a chance, to include my heart in the path. And then I grew into that, and I grew into understanding that the human nature has to be included in that path to divinity, if you want to say it in a few words.